Hey guys, David here. Oh my god, a figure review. Yes, this is the review I've been wanting to do for the longest time, that I've been teasing here and there with a couple of hints, but finally I'm here to do it. Hopefully I don't fuck it up, but here I am to bring you guys my review of Transformers Beast Wars Masterpiece Optimus, Optimus Primal. I almost felt like I was butchering the name, but Optimus Primal from Takara Tomy. They're doing this Masterpiece line for the Beast Wars line, and oh my god, I'm loving what they're doing. After this, they got Cheetor, and after playing with this figure, they gotta do Megatron. Please, they gotta do Megatron, and I'll be buying that immediately after it comes out. So I'm really looking forward to it, because I've been wanting to own Primal and Megatron from Beast Wars for the longest time, and they had like this reissue some time ago where they had the two in a double pack, but I missed out on it. And then they did this little Generations line, but the only ones that we saw in there was Rhinox, Rat Trap, Cheetor, Dinobot I think was in there, but I don't think Primal ever resurfaced, and of course definitely not Megatron. So it was a real shame to see that they were not in there, at least from my understanding, from my very faded memory. I don't think they ever made it onto that Generations line. So what you see before you is the first ever iteration of Primal since that reissue back in like the early 2000s or something like that. It must have been around that time, or mid 2000s. I think it was around the time that the movie was coming out, the 2007 movie, which by the way will be celebrating its 10th year anniversary next year, along with the release of Last Night. So anyways, let's go ahead and get on with the review. Here I have him in his gorilla form, and honestly, it's a very awesome representation of his gorilla form from the animated, or the CG animated show. The only downside is that it's one that's going to come with almost every iteration of Optimus Primal in figure mode, is where whenever they try to do the gorilla mode, he almost never completely conceals his robotic parts. There's always going to be something protruding, and you can kind of see that happening a little bit here in the back, where you got a little bit of the white here from the robotic legs and a little bit of kibble here on the ankles, but that's going to come with the territory. That's never going to be 100% concealed. There's always going to be something showing in every version of Optimus Primal. However, this Masterpiece figure here, considering it's part of a Masterpiece line and they have to hold it up to a very high standard, they have to make sure that they can cover up as much robot kibble as possible, and I think that they did an excellent job. Obviously, he's kind of like this jet black, but what I love is that if it's not coming across well on camera, is that he has a little bit of a matte finish on some of the parts that are supposed to resemble that of fur. They did this thing with the painting where it's a bit of a matte finish, and I love that. That's why I'm not trying to touch it too much, because with my sweaty hands I'm scared that that matte finish is just gonna gloss on over. But the only part that's kind of glossy is here in the chest area, and that's come to be expected, because that's usually where the fur kind of stops and where the skin is actually starts to show on a real gorilla. So obviously that's gonna have a little bit more of a glossy finish, along with the facial expressions, which are really nice. The paint job on the eyes could have been just a tad bit better, because it almost looks like it's looking in opposite directions, but overall it's a very nice looking sculpt. But overall, very excellent job. In fact, in my opinion, the best job at concealing those robotic parts and trying to make a much more fluid looking sculpt of the gorilla form. As you can see right there, of course there's going to be pieces showing like here mainly, but overall very, very nice. Very awesome. And the foot, despite having that robotic kibble here in the back of the ankle, very sturdy to be able to place the figure in almost any surface and not really have it be moved around. It's not going to be lopsided. It's always going to stand firmly, which is always very, very nice. So let's go ahead and move on to the articulation. Pretty basic, but very, very good. The head can tilt up slightly, about that far. So you can see right there, he has a little bit of a ball joint going on right there that allows his head to pivot up and down about that far. Actually, down doesn't really happen at all because of the way that the neck is structured, but that's how it is. He can look a little bit to the left and a little bit to the right, like so, but again, a little bit of the plastic here is kind of hindering that. His arms can actually move outwards about that far, inwards. Ooh, spoilers! Anyways, just pretend you didn't see that. He can rotate his arm 360 degrees vertically, and if you couldn't already tell from the sound, he has a right to the joint there that allows you to do that. And I've always, if you guys have watched my previous Transformer reviews, you'll know that I love right to the joints, because that means that posability is going to be a whole lot more fun. Unfortunately, absolutely no waist articulation, at least not in this mode. You'll see why later, but unfortunately there's nothing going on in the torso. Keeping with the arms, there is an elbow joint here that allows it to bend about that far, and there's also a slight swivel right there that allows to the lower arm to rotate 360 degrees. And then you move into the hand here. Let's go ahead and show the hand. He actually has posable fingers. Similar to previous Masterpiece figures of that line, the opposable thumb actually does not move, which is a little ironic considering he's a gorilla. I feel like you should go ahead and entitle him to be part of that species with a movable thumb. He's like one of the few animals that have opposable thumbs. Why'd you do this to him? Why'd you do him wrong like that? But the only finger that can move by itself is the index finger. The index finger is articulated right there. And then the other three fingers are conjoined together as one piece of plastic, but it can move inwards and outwards, as you can see. Going down to the leg can move about that far forward as well as that far back. And yes, you did hear a right to the joint. It can also move outwards about that far, but then this top piece of plastic kind of starts to hinder that mobility, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but that's as far as it can move. Move the legs back in. Really not that much of any knee articulation of any kind in this mode, so it's a little bit limited. And then the foot has a slight pivot that allows it to move inwards and outwards about that far, as well as about that far back, and then virtually not much forward. But that's because of how some of these pieces work that mostly lend to the transformation more than anything else. So that's a bit of a bummer, but it kind of comes with the territory when, again, they try to conceal as much of the robot parts as they possibly can, but it's going to come at a price, and that price does come with the possibility of the figure, because one of the poses that even the instructions, which are in Japanese, because that's the only way to get this figure at the time, the instructions through pictures show that you can pose him in his gorilla mode in a gorilla stance. Instead of being walking upright like he is right now, you can pose him by doing this thing right here, forward like that, and then kind of moving the legs forward just ever so slightly, tipping the head back, and then you got his little gorilla stance going on right there. But it just doesn't look 100% right because of how some of these pieces are. And yeah, you can kind of move the legs a little bit more if you kind of stretch them out, but I don't know. Sorry, I just hit the camera. I mean, he looks alright, but he doesn't even look like he's looking forward all that much. He looks like he's not looking forward to life. What is up with that? So yeah, that's pretty much the extent of the possibility for Optimus Primal in his gorilla mode. So it's a little bit of a bummer, but it's going to be expected, especially when you're dealing with a figure that's trying its best to be as realistic to a gorilla as possible when you got a robot hiding in its interior, which we are going to go ahead and unveil right now. Actually, no, before we do that, let's go ahead and talk about the only accessories that you can truly mess around with in his gorilla mode, which are the interchangeable face plates. He's only got two more. As you can see right here, he's got his relaxed gorilla face. Leave him in focus right there. And the only two other faces he comes with are that of the happy gorilla, which looks goofy as fuck. I'm sorry, but it looks really goofy, but in a delightful way, in a charming way. In fact, I left him pose with his gorilla face for a while in some funny poses. And then the enraged gorilla face. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and throw in the goofy face. Give me just 1 second here. All you gotta do is just reach in and pop it off, and as you can see, that this is actually truly terrifying. Take the silly face, got the little two pegs right there, fit into place, and some of these faces fit better than others. Like this one looks pretty nice, flushed in, and again, he's got that silly gorilla face. I'll admit, it's pretty adorable. But then when you try to do the same thing with the enraged face, you pop it in, and it doesn't look like it flushes all the way here on the right side of his face. You can actually see a little bit of the red plastic that holds the whole thing together, and that's a little disappointing, and a little bit there on the other side. So this face doesn't flush all that well, and it kind of ruins the quote-unquote illusion. That's why I prefer either the normal neutral face or the happy-go-lucky face. And that really about does it for the accessories and other features you can really do with Optimus Primal in his gorilla mode. So let's go ahead and transform him. First thing you're gonna do is rotate him, take the arms and kind of pull them out a little bit. And as you can see, there's an extra joint there, but that's not necessarily for possibility. You could go ahead and interpret it that way, but it's mostly for the transformation. You push his arms a little forward there, and then you reach in here and lift up his butt. And basically what I like to do, and this is a little, oh, before we do that actually, there's these panels right here on the side. You reach in with your nail and kind of pull them out like that. Same thing on this side. And there's a little indentation where you can kind of tell that this is where they want you to pull with your nail. And just pull them out slightly like this. That's why we move the arms out of the way. And then back here, we take this entire like backpack section and then pull it out. Like so. Once we do that, we go ahead and pop his belly. Go ahead and remove his belly right here, kind of flip it upwards like that. And then we're going to reach inside. See how we're going to do that. As you can see right there, the head is starting to move. We have to go ahead and take this chest piece, rotate it outwards like so. And then it is here where we do the whole head swapping thing. And we go ahead and rotate this back while at the same time pulling outward the robotic head. So we take the head, rotate it around, and then there is his robot head. And as we do that, we're going to go ahead and do a couple of things. One, this chest piece is going to flush back inside in there. It's going to be a little bit deeper than it was before. And then this back piece is actually going to be rotated like so. And now you can take this little butt piece and kind of pop it back in and flush it with the rest. And then we're going to take the, what was originally the belly piece, flip it upwards, and then there's actually two tabs right there. Going to fit into those two slots right there. Like, there we go. Pretty simple, but you get the gist of it. And then we take the backpack piece and kind of flip it upwards, and it doesn't really click into any place in particular, but if we take these little guns here, which I'll showcase a little bit better later on, you can actually see there's a tab right there, and that tab is going to fit into that slot of this piece right here, and it kind of keeps the whole thing in place. Same thing with the other piece right here. It kind of keeps the whole thing in place. We take the little two jets here, or guns, or whatever you want to call them, flip them downwards and flush them in with the rest of the figure. And then the top is pretty much done. Now we take the shoulder pieces and rotate them outwards, which is arguably the easiest piece of the transformation, is to just take these pieces and flip them upwards. We're going to do a similar thing here with the chest piece, or the belly piece, or whatever you want to call it. Inside here, you could actually reach in and pull it out, and as you can see, ooh, not that. You could take this, kind of pull it out a little bit. As you can see, this little piece here is protruding. What you're going to do is kind of reach inside. It's a little difficult to do, especially with someone like me who does not have a single bit of nail. Give me just 1 second, might be a little bit tough. There you go. You take this, rotate it around, and then flip it back downwards and flush it into place. Let me see what's it doing. There you go. Flush it into place, and it kind of gives it that look like, oh, it's transforming. Ooh. So there you go. And that's pretty much the top. Now we go to the bottom, and what we're going to do is rotate the entire bottom portion, which I believe is synonymous with Optimus Primal. Almost every iteration of Optimus Primal, whether it be in toy form or even in the cartoon, I believe, he rotates the top portion of his body all the way around to kind of finish off the transformation. This does get a little complicated. There's a little bit of a trick to some of these little steps to doing the legs, but with practice you start to get the hang of it. So first thing we're going to do is actually take this humongous fur piece and kind of pop it off and flip it down like that. Then we take the leg and we pretty much just disconnect it, but we don't fully, it's a little tough. There you go. We disconnect it, but we don't fully extend it just yet. We actually have to take this piece right here and rotate it all the way around like that to kind of expose this red side of it. And that's actually what forms the knee for the robot. And as we do, we actually take the leg and rotate it downwards and kind of flush it into place. And then when that happens, we could actually take this piece right here, kind of pull it outwards and move it up so that then it flushes better into place, and it actually clips into place if I'm not mistaken. There you go. And it kind of flushes with the knee as well as the rest of the leg. And then we go down here, and I'd rather show you the steps with one leg, because once you get the gist of that, you can pretty much just rinse and repeat with the other leg. So now you take this piece that you popped out before, you take it, rotate it around. There's actually a little joint in there that allows the panel to rotate vertically like that. Rotate it, and then you simply just pop it into place like so. And then you finish things off by transforming the foot. You basically just take what was originally the heel for the gorilla mode, that's this bit of robot kibble, you take it, flip it outwards, that forms the robot foot, and then you take the gorilla foot, you flip it inwards and kind of tuck it away, while at the same time this piece that's going to come along with it, you take it, extend it, it's its own piece, so you can just extend it while at the same time keeping the gorilla foot masked underneath, like so, and that forms the foot. And basically all those steps you just rinse and repeat with this leg. So let's go ahead and do it. Sometimes you're going to face this little difficulty here where you extended it a little too far, and that kind of obstructs the mobility of that knee piece. You kind of have to like tuck it back in without clipping it, but you have to like tuck it back in so that then you can pull this piece out, because the two pieces, I don't know if you can see it right there, they kind of conflict with one another. One can move but the other won't, so you kind of have to like play with it a little bit to know which one's going to be moving and which one won't. And with that, you pretty much complete the transformation for Optimus Primal in his robot mode, and man, he looks outstanding. One thing that I can easily point out is that they did an excellent job at taking what was the very stubbly, the very short and stout nature of the gorilla mode, and be able to kind of take all those pieces and then put him in another place of the body, so that then he resembles more of that robot that is hidden away, that is Optimus Primal, and that's awesome. Plus, at the same time, keeping in touch with some of the details that made up Optimus Primal in the Beast Wars show, such as the little red knee plates that I showed you earlier during the transformation, as well as this right here, the little chest piece that is kind of sort of, that's basically supposed to resemble his head, but it has that little design going. And then furthermore, I love the little detail with his legs here. As you can see, there's a little bit of a hydraulic type of piece moving there every time you kind of pivot the foot. That is really cool and really dynamic, and I really love that little attention to detail whenever they make these masterpiece figures. Not only that, but also the transformation is kind of convoluted. I was expecting it to be a little bit easy, and sure, there's certain sections where they're like, yeah, I might as well just take these little shoulder pieces and just have it be the same thing as the gorilla mode, only this time you're going to flip up the little shoulder pieces and reveal the robotic red and white pieces inside, and boom, that's it. And that's going to come with the territory, but at the same time, I love how convoluted it got a little bit with the middle here where you rotate the head, as well as especially the legs. I love transforming the legs because it's really, really fun, but at the same time, they did a good job at masking everything so that it flushes perfectly, and I have almost no qualms with the transformation or even how this robot mode looks, because it's tremendously faithful down to the faceplate. As you can see right there, he looks exactly like he did in the show, resembling that of Optimus Prime, while at the same time having that primal look, and I really, really dig it. Plus, there's actually a little bit of a hidden feature. He does come with an electronic device. If you take his head and push it downwards, his eyes light up for a limited amount of time. And that's really, really cool. The only thing that's not cool is that they do not include the batteries. It comes with those little chip-like batteries, 2 of them, 1.V I believe they're called, and it needs 2 of them, and it does not come with them. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I had to do a little bit of my own little search to find them. I didn't have any around the house, so I had to go ahead and buy them. And you have to put them in his gorilla head, so you have to pull out the gorilla head, unscrew the little panel in the back, put the batteries, and then rotate it back to his robot head. So that's a little bit of a nuisance, but it's still a nice little feature. Just when you thought that he didn't come with any features, he comes with this nice little light up feature for his eyes, and that's actually rather, rather cool. So let me just show off a little bit more of his robot mode. As you can see, everything just flushes perfectly. Yeah, he has this little backpack piece right here, but trust me, I feel like in other iterations of the figure, this little back piece protrudes a little bit more and kind of shows itself to be a bit more obvious. And as I show the figure, let me go ahead and demonstrate some of the features. He has these little rockets here that you can kind of rotate all the way to the front and show off as his little guns ready for action right there, and that's actually rather cool. And then staying here in the back, they threw in this little feature that is kind of neat, but at the same time, it really does not stand out to me. Like, I'm almost never going to point this out. But apparently, if you take this piece right here and rotate it, I believe the other way, you actually have to remove it, I believe. I don't know if it's going to show off here, but yeah, you have to like undo these pieces again and rotate the entire, or at least flip this out right here and then rotate this piece like that, and then kind of flush it back in. If you look inside, it looks like he has these little like propulsion engines that are supposed to service as a bit of a jetpack, but it almost doesn't even look like it. It just looks like little. You have to look really, really hard to see that. Oh yeah, those are little like rockets inside there, and that just does not stand out to me. And it's kind of pointless. I don't know. I just don't care for it. What I do care about, that's I think rather cool, are these little guns that are actually in his forearm. If you rotate the arm around, you can actually see a little button right there that you can kind of press, or at least press with your nail. And if the nail doesn't work, you're just gonna have to use a little something here. I'm actually gonna use another one of his accessories, which are these swords right here, which he can hold in one of his hands. Let me actually demonstrate that real quick. But he does come with his signature swords, which look rather nice. They're painted rather well. Not much in the detail department, but still, you know, I guess the job done. So it looks rather cool. And he can hold them by the handle right here. They actually have little tabs there on either side, so you can fit them into his hand just fine. You open up his hand. You fit in the little sword, like so. And you just close the fingers back up, and boom. It's holding the sword in one hand, which looks rather nice. And then in the other hand, you can actually take the sword and kind of press in on this little panel here. Press it. And then on the other side, you can take out this little thing here. It's a little difficult to reach in. Again, I bite my nails, so I'm not the best person to be doing this when it comes to these panels that are very hard to reach. But you take this little panel here, you flip it outwards, and when you do, you reveal this nice little rocket launcher that's embedded into both of his forearms, actually. So you can have the sword in one hand and then the rocket in the other, and that's actually rather nice, along with the little rocket launchers that he's got right here next to his head. He is ready to whoop some ass. I really dig that. It's actually a nice little pose. Speaking of posability, he's got articulation, much better articulation than he does in gorilla mode, obviously, because not only do you get a little bit of the kibble out of the way, but they're not worried about masking those robot pieces. Now here's the deal. A little bit of the articulation is pretty much similar to that of his gorilla mode, mostly in the arms, because you really didn't do much to transform the arms, only this time he probably moves inwards and outwards a little bit better because this piece is out of the way, and he bends at the end, at the elbow. He can rotate he can also rotate his wrist, in case you guys couldn't tell. He can actually rotate the wrist, and you can do the exact same thing in ape mode, so my apologies for not demonstrating that earlier. His head is actually a little bit better when it comes to posability. He can actually rotate his head 300. I was hoping it wouldn't get stuck, it wouldn't break, but he can rotate his head 360 degrees and look up and down about that far. Then he actually has some waist articulation, mostly because of the way the transformation happens, but he does have a ratcheted joint in his hips that allows posability in that way, which you couldn't already tell from the sound. And then he's got ball joints here, ratcheted ball joints here at the top of the leg, which allow the leg to move about that much back, which is extraordinary. And what's even more extraordinary is that he is able to rotate his legs almost completely laterally to the sides, allowing him to do the splits. Oh, fell forward. But he could do the splits if you wanted to. That is amazing. take his legs, kind of spare him the pain of doing those splits. After all, Optimus Primal is a male. And he can also bend at the knee, about that far back, again with ratcheted joints to allow for very sturdy posability. Now a little bit is of course done from the transformation. He actually has the second joint right there, but that's because of the way the leg moves around during the transformation. But still, that's more than what you could say for the beast mode, the articulation that you got in the legs for the beast mode. And similar to that of his gorilla counterpart, he has that joint there in the foot that allows the foot to move about inwards and outwards that far, and forward and backward that much back. So that's pretty cool, and it keeps with that little hydraulic action that's going on right there whenever you move the foot. So yeah, the posability is definitely a whole lot better here than in the gorilla mode, because they're not worried about hiding those pieces, and the legs are done way better here in this mode than in the last one. So that's always a plus. So before I wrap up, I just got a couple more accessories to kind of showcase here. I went ahead and I spent a little bit of extra cash, and they threw in this nice little bonus that came in this little box here. That's just fucking adorable. It looks like a banana box, the type of boxes that ship bananas across the country, and it looks rather nice, but it also has a little Transformers Beast War lettering there, as well as the Maximal logo there. But you got a little you got a little banana there on the side. Would have been nice if it actually came with a stem of bananas. Oh, well, not real bananas, but at least a little accessory, so you could put it in his hand when he's in his gorilla mode and he's like eating the banana, especially with the jolly looking face. Oh, it's not right here, but it's in there somewhere, the little jolly gorilla looking face holding a banana. That would have been adorable, but that would have been rather cool. But this little accessory came in this nice little box, and the accessory that I'm talking about is this little mace here, which I believe he used in the series a number of times. And it has cool little detail there. It resembles that of the show very much. It's got the spikes here. It's got the little tribal looking designs of the skull. And then you got the chain and the little piece here to hold it in his hand, similar to that of the swords. He's got the little two tabs on either side of that little handle, similar to that of the sword, so that he can hold it. But the big kicker here is that this piece is actually made out of die-cast metal. And this motherfucker actually hurt. I remember one time I actually swung it around, hit my hand, and this hurts. It's die-cast metal, so this thing is actually going to hurt. So it's a nice little commodity, and he can hold it in his hand, and I gotta do it for time's sake, but he actually can hold this little accessory, and it's a nice little touch. And then his other little accessory in his Robo mode is similar to that of his Gorilla mode, which is these alternate face plates. He comes with 4, and at first I thought 2 of them were exactly the same as they were here in his Robot mode that he has by default, which is his static Optimus Primal face. But these faces are in fact different. Let's start off with probably the most obviously different, which is the one that comes with a little face plate that comes the little mouthpiece, the little mouth plate, which comes over his face to resemble more of the classic Optimus Prime look rather than the Optimus Primal one. Then the next face is this one right here, which upon first look it doesn't look all that different, but his mouth is actually open, and you really can't tell very well because all they did was just open up the mouth without throwing in some added paint decals to make it look like, oh, his mouth is open and his teeth are showing. No, it's just his mouth's open and that's it. And it's a little hard to tell, but his mouth is open. It's supposed to be like a battle cry type of face. Put it to the side there, and then his last face is the one that looks almost identical to that of his default face, but the only slight subtle difference is that he's actually smiling. If you look closely, his mouth is actually forming a little bit of a cracking of a smile, and then one of his eyes, I believe his left eye, is squinting slightly. He's not winking, but it's squinting lightly to kind of give like that Harrison Ford type of smile, and he's just like, I'm smiling, I'm kind of happy, but at the same time I feel like this is going to bite me in the ass later on in my life. So let's go ahead and put one of these faces on. I'm going to go ahead and put on the faceplate face because I really love this face. This is the first one that I wanted to put on his face. Now, the only slight bummer is that this faceplate is really difficult to take off, so I'm going to go ahead and use something that's a little unorthodox, but I have it right here because I was putting in the batteries for his little light up feature, and I'm going to use this screwdriver But please be careful because it can be very easy to reach in here. As you can see, this looks morbid as fuck. It looks like I'm about to kill him, slash his throat, but I'm actually trying my best to like take it off while at the same time, there we go, not damaging the figure. But at first I thought that I was gonna break it because his faceplate was stuck in there very, very hard. It was, oh my god, it was nerve-wracking. But his faceplate does come off like so. Let's go ahead and take the mouthpiece one and kind of just pop it in, fit it into place nice and snug, and then boom, there is his alternate face, and it does light up just like the other ones. And that really about does it for Masterpiece Optimus Primal, one of my favorite figures in my entire collection. Let me go ahead and actually put the mace in his hand to kind of wrap things up here. But yeah, this is definitely one of my favorite figures out of my entire collection. I've always wanted an Optimus Primal figure. It doesn't even have to be the Masterpiece one. I wanted an Optimus Primal figure. And yet Takara Tomy decided to go ahead and do a Masterpiece iteration. I knew I had to have it ASAP. And thankfully, it's actually one of the better figures to come out in recent memory. And on top of that, it's just an overall great figure for any diehard fan of not only Transformers, but also the Beast Wars line, which I was a humongous fan of as well. And I'm glad to see that they did it justice by giving us great transformation, great detail, great attention to said detail, and making sure that it looks like it did in the show, while at the same time not compromising any other aspects of the figure, as well as a decent abundance of accessories, as well as some hidden features that, I mean, that whole light up feature, I didn't discover that until like 2 or 3 days after owning the damn thing. So that was something. My only bummer is that a little bit of more articulation in the gorilla mode would have been nice, but at the same time, I wasn't expecting it to be too much. They're going to try to mask as many pieces as they possibly can to make it seem like a convincing looking gorilla, and of course there's going to be a price. You know, you're gonna have to compromise something for another. But I'm glad that the decision that they made, because between the Robo mode and the gorilla mode, I'm gonna be posting him in his Robo mode. He looks way too badass to just be in gorilla mode all the time. But at least they threw in that goofy gorilla face to kind of make him look charming during his gorilla mode. But overall, I love this figure so much, and it's definitely one of the recent highlights of this past generation of Transformer figures. I mean, I know I don't collect that much as of late, but I can safely say that even if I did keep collecting, Transformers Masterpiece Optimus Primal from Takara would have been one of the highlights of my entire collection, should I have kept going. So for that, I'm going to be giving Masterpiece Optimus Primal a very solid 9 out of 10. It's only not a perfect 10 just because of that lack of articulation during its gorilla mode, but man, I'm in love with this figure, and I'm just going to keep on playing with it for a good while. So please let me know what you guys think of the Masterpiece Optimus Primal figure. Would you be willing to buy it now after watching this review? Because it's definitely worth your money. If you're an avid collector, if you love the Beast Wars series, you definitely need to pick this bad boy up. So that does it for me. Please let me know what you guys thought of my review in the comments. Please leave any kind of feedback. I am welcome to it, and I'll try to respond in a timely manner. I'm trying to get in the habit of responding to comments a bit more. Please like and share this video. Subscribe for future videos, some of which might just be figure reviews. Who knows? Maybe I'll see something online on BBTS that I really like. I'm liking what I'm seeing, so I'm like, okay, purchase it, ship that motherfucker to me, and hopefully I'll bring you a review of said motherfucker. So please subscribe for those videos coming very soon, and thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate your guys' patience for this special review. I hope it turns out well, and I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I enjoyed bringing it to you guys. Thank you guys for watching. Take care.